Hey, hey, welcome back to Gather, Connect, Create. I'm your host, Megan Schultz, and this is the podcast where every week I am hoping to leave you with something that you can try wherever you find yourself that might inspire you to gather, connect, or create, or all three. Who knows? I share stories, ideas, and like today, beautiful interviews with people who inspire me to no end, and I hope they inspire you too. Listeners, today on the podcast, I am so excited to introduce you to a woman who has become a mentor to me and who has really been my writing teacher for the last few years. She is somebody who inspires me on the daily to look up and look around and notice where I'm at, notice how I'm feeling. Someone who gives me permission with the prompts and the poetry that she brings to pay attention and to sit in the duality of life that is, on the one hand, so hard, and on the other, so beautiful and so soft and so all the things. Today on the podcast, I have Laurie Wagner, and Laurie is an author, a teacher, a writer, a traveler, a retreat leader, and perhaps most importantly for this conversation today, she is the creator of this wild writing practice. Laurie has been teaching this practice for, the last 25 years, I think, but has been practicing it herself for much longer than that. And wild writing is this beautifully intuitive way to write. So the practice is essentially taking a poem, listening to that poem, and then taking lines from the poem and using those lines from the poem as jump-off lines to do your own writing from. And your own writing doesn't have to be associated with that poem in any way. It's just that you're using the lines from that poem to run with as a prompt for your own thoughts. So you let the poem wash over you as it's read. You let your mind wander. While it's being read, you think about what it's conjuring up for you, those feelings and associations. And then you just let your mind and your hand and the pen move. And you just keep saying yes to what wants to come out. And you set a timer and you write for 15 minutes. And if you get bored of that train of thought, or if you run out of things to say on that train of thought, you just go back to the prompt and you start over and you start a new train until your timer goes off or until you can stop writing if you've got more time. And it's just this beautiful practice that I have come to love and to appreciate and to do in the wee hours of the morning, frankly, because I get up before anyone else in my house. And once those pitter-patter of feet are upstairs and I hear them, then my day is off and running and the time for my own writing is essentially gone. And I really wanted to have Laurie on the podcast today to talk about that process because it is such a connective and beautiful way to gather. Because while I do it by myself some days of the week, I'm more often doing it in community because it's really a practice that's done in community. And it has the perfect confluence of gathering, connecting, and creating. So it just felt so right for this podcast. And I hope you'll hear a little bit of the magic that happens when you write in community. And if you don't consider yourself a writer, please don't push pause just yet. Please listen on because this is really something that everyone can try. It's open and available to all of us. So I'm excited to introduce you to Laurie, and I think I'll just dive right in. Laurie, hello.
Hey, Megan.
Hey, I
Hi.
want to start, before we even dive into the interview and my questions for you, I want to start with a huge debt of gratitude because I know we've spent a couple weeks together on retreat, on your Wild Wonder retreats, and you've seen me pop in and out of the live calls when I can make it, when my schedule permits, but I feel like you're with me. I feel we have coffee together 3 times a week, because I get these videos as part of being a part of the Wild family. And the inspiration that you have given me through wild writing and the practice has been, I don't know, I think it's safe to say life-changing, which feels strange when I put it in juxtaposition with the things I actually write about, which are very ordinary and very much not life-changing things, right? But mostly things that I'm noticing or seeing differently because of the way your prompts
Mm-hmm.
and poetry
Mm-hmm.
kind of nudge me in to notice and to pay attention. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that practice and doing this
Mm-hmm.
practice on the daily for the last almost 3 years, I think I've been a part of the Wild Writing family, has been such a gift. So I just want to start with a huge thank you.
I'm so grateful that you come to it, that it speaks to you.
Mm,
It's, that's everything. It's like it meets you where you are. And I'm so grateful that such a beautiful and simple practice can touch us so deeply.
mm.
So I feel I cherish it as well and love that I can share it,
Oh,
and that it's met by people. And I just want to say one more thing too, which is that you say, like, I just write about simple things. And it's like, I think that's part of what I care about the most
mm,
is that we're not like, I'm going to write these great, amazing, and the big story. It's like, no, actually, the life is right here in front of us, that we
yes.
would cast our eyes down and actually see what is here and cherish it in the simplest ways. That's
Yes.
that's what I'm hoping for myself always, and for others.
Yeah. Yes. Well, it does. It hits me so often. And always before my interviews, I like to pull one of Andrea's cards from
Mm,
her Moonflower Oracle deck. And the card I pulled says, trade your fear for curiosity. And so
love
here we
that.
go with this interview.
Yeah.
I'm trading my
Perfect.
fear for I'm so curious about so much about you, Laurie. So I gave listeners a context of a little bit about who you are and what wild writing is and what it's been to me in the introduction. But I'm curious a little bit of a history on how you got this started. I know you've been doing this for what, almost 30 years now, maybe more than that.
I've been doing it I practice it for 35 years, but I've been teaching for over 25 probably.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
So, can you remember back to when you first started and where the idea of taking these prompts through poetry started and like your first
Hmm.
gathering people around your table? Like
Hmm.
when did that start? How did it start?
Yeah. Um, I'll try to kind of be succinct about it, but I'll try to share the details. I was, actually newly married. So I got married when I was 31. So I was around 31. I'm 66 now. So, almost 66. And, I took a class in Berkeley. I live in Northern California, and I took a class in Berkeley at an art studio with a woman who was older than me. Her name was Cecile Muchnek. She had been a friend of Natalie Goldberg's from Writing Down the
Mm,
Bone. And
hmm.
Cecile had these classes that I forget what she called them, but they're very much wild writing, very
Mm,
much. And she turned me on to a bunch of poets, like poets I don't really use myself, but at the time were really like Mary Oliver. She turned me on to Mary Oliver, and she turned me on to Sharon Olds and other people. And at the time, so I would go to these classes once a week, and I was in a really like angry part of my life. Like I was newly married, I was working full time, and I just had all this road rage in me.
mm,
And, I was a perfectly nice person during the day, but I would come to her classes and I would just channel all this emotion. I had all this freedom to do this thing. And it was like, wow. And of course, it wasn't always like that. Sometimes I was, whatever I was doing, I had all this freedom. So I went to her class for a few years and
mm,
loved it so much. I made friends, and we all loved it, so that we started doing classes outside of her class just to gather. I wasn't running them, we were all doing it and wanting to do this work as much as possible because we loved it so much. And I was teaching at the time creative nonfiction and memoir and essay at
mm,
a website called writers.com. And I
mm,
taught there for many, many years. And I was just trying to, I had young children. Well, let's see, children came a little later, but I was just looking to expand my teaching and wondered to myself, gosh, I wonder if I could teach this style of writing. And I remember I put up a flyer at the library and at the coffee house, and I didn't I was just taking a risk. I didn't know. All I knew
mm,
is I really love the work. So I'd been doing it for 6 or 7 years just with my friends. And then, we started in my ex-husband's garage, his art studio that was in his cold garage. And
Mm,
we had like little chairs, little like camping chairs in a
mm,
circle, with a little candle in the middle. And we would just start this thing and we would do it. And I think that what has always really touched me the most and still does is whenever I'm in the presence of other people who are really unpeeling and letting us see who is inside there, I'm
mm,
just floored at the humanity and how much that teaches me and touches me about
mm,
being a human being.
mm,
So it's not so much about like, wow, that person. It's more like, oh, that's how you be a human being. Oh,
mm,
that's how you share sorrow. That's how you share vulnerability, like being in the moment. So it just like it started that way, but I had my straight job teaching and doing a lot of, creative, I was a lot journalist and stuff, but anything I could do. And then one class grew, some people fell off because they weren't the right people, but then more people signed up. And so one class became two, became three, over time I started until, at one point, years and years into it, I was teaching here at the house and I was teaching at the hospital for the cancer patients, and just it grew so much. And so there was like, I think a time when I was teaching like 8 classes a week,
mm.
3 here at the house, 3 online. And then, Andrea and I started traveling, and it's just been, I mean, that's how it started. And it's always the same in the sense that the structure is always the same. We do something called story slices where we share, and then we do 3 pieces of writing and 3 readings, and then we're done. So
Mm.
it's a very clear practice and it's incredibly bonding
Mm.
and it's just been beautiful.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's so interesting that you end there because I was going to ask you. I feel like a lot of people think about writing as a very solitary thing, right? Like something that you
Mm-hmm.
do at a desk or
Mm-hmm.
maybe squirreled away in the
Mm-hmm.
corner of a coffee shop or,
Mm-hmm.
writing furiously in your journal under the covers or whatever. And it's not really looked at as something that one does in community. And yet I feel like this is the essence of wild writing and this is what you do. And as this podcast is now called Gather, Connect, Create, I'm just
Mm-hmm.
curious if you could talk a little bit about writing as a means of connecting us. And I don't even necessarily mean from reader to writer or writer to
Mm-hmm.
reader, although that's something too, but
Mm-hmm.
just more of like the physicality almost of writing in community.
Totally. In the beginning of the practice, in the early years, I thought this is a cool creative writing practice. This is nice. I get to channel all my stuff. I get to be a human being. I get to be angry. I get to be happy. I get to be sad. Like
Mm,
what a cool thing. Like this is such an easy access to get to the heart of the emotion and sharing it without we don't have critique. That's
mm,
very, very important. So we're really just witnessing each other and we're honoring and listening. And people, wonder like, wow, is it enough to just witness and just listen? And it really is. So it's a super there's a lot of reverence in that. We're not trying to fix or change or give advice.
mm,
Um, but early on, that's how I saw it until what I noticed was that people kept signing up over and over. Every time I have a new class, same people coming in, the same, like the Friday class thought they were the Friday class. They were there for 10 years. Like everyone cut. And I thought to myself, why are they coming back? What
mm,
is it about this thing that has people coming back? And I would always say to them, look, no worries. If you don't have to sign up again, you have other things to do with your time and your money, no worries. I'm not going to take it personally. They kept coming back and they kept saying, this thing that sort of, I didn't love the way they said it, but that's what they'd always say. It's like cheap therapy. And so, I started listening and, I'm in the Bay Area. So I'm very careful when I use words like healing
mm,
or, healing because everybody's using that language. And I, I only really started using that language in the last 10 years, 7 or 8 years, because indeed that's what's happening, not just for the writer, but to be at a table of women and people who are unpeeling in front of you and really letting you see it to create a safe environment where people really want to go there and other people are witnessing it is healing. It's community healing. Because when you hear somebody, like I said, somebody who's really sharing something, you're like, oh, that's how it's done. I've been doing this for 35 years and I'm still like, oh, that's how it's done. Like, thank you, human being, for showing me how to be a human being. Thank you for sharing your sorrow, because it's not about, oh, she's so sad. It's about, oh, I know sorrow. I know sorrow. And so it gets me in touch with my own sorrow or my own grief. And that's very healing, to be at a table where people are willing to do that. And it's funny because sometimes our classes, their people know each other so well over time. We'll have some social event like the baby shower for one or something like that. And we're all sitting around social, but no one knows what to say because we only know how to communicate in this way. So I've been at these things and I'm like, okay, you guys, like, let's just do a check-in. Let's just like
quick story slice.
Yeah, let's just like go into it. Let's just go deep, and it becomes like it changes the waters of your community, because you get used to wanting to, you get used to listening to yourself, because this is such a listening practice. It's not about reaching for the great story. It's about reaching for what's right there.
Yeah.
And paying attention to what's right there, because what's right there is being offered to you. It's like going to a restaurant and they hand you the menu and you're like, I see what you have here, but I'd rather have something off the menu. No, we're taking the menu, and the menu is learning, when you're writing really quickly and you're bypassing the critical voice and that voice of like, this better be good, and you're listening instead to the intuition and the unconscious, you're getting delivered something. And so to listen to yourself and say, okay, and yes, that's a very healing thing to do, whether you're doing it alone, which also can be super healing, but with others, and that you're willing to share the simplest things.
Yeah.
You're willing to share, not even the big things, but just the smallest things. And we all are tethered by those small things. That's our life.
Yes.
Small things.
Yes. Yes. Well, and there's something so wild, and I don't know if this is where the word wild came from in your writing, but that happens when we write in a group. And I know I've had this experience when being witnessed, and when my words have been witnessed, it's almost hard to describe. It's like I'm writing. And as I'm writing, I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm reading this out loud, because this is terrible. This is rubbish. It's navel gazy. Like, ain't no way I'm reading this. And then of course everybody goes. And so I'm like, well, shit, I'm going to have to read it. And I do. And it's like, oh, actually, wait a second. That doesn't sound like it sounded when I wrote that. I don't even know how to explain that.
I know. It's really, that's why in the circles, everybody reads. We don't give people a pass. I mean, I sometimes will be like, okay, it's your first time here. You get one pass. Is this it? Is this your pastime? Because it's so healing to read it. And especially like, even as a teacher, I think part of the best things I can do as a teacher is to read stuff I don't love that I wrote, because I don't need anyone putting me on a pedestal. And how many hundreds of billions of times have I done it? And still I have to face the page. It's a practice. Yeah. It's a practice. And so being willing to be in the practice with people gives them space to not love their work all the time either, because that's part of what we're doing here.
Yeah.
What I tell students too is I say, the only difference between me and you is I've done this so many times that when I have a piece of writing that I don't like as much, I can say like, but I'm not flattened by it because it doesn't define me. And I think in the beginning for people, it might be like, gosh, is my writing good? I don't know. I don't ask that question anymore, because I know I'm just going to write again. And then I'm surprised. It's like, you can be feeling super flat and then have this beautiful poem and a prompt, and something gorgeous comes out of you, and you had no idea where that came from.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that reminds me of this story that you, I feel like you told it. I heard it from you first, and then about Rosemary Watola Tromer and what she says too about that. And I went to see her in Chicago. She came for a workshop, and it was like, oh, I was meeting this beautiful soul. I was like, oh, I learned, and I did tell her, I was like, I learned about you from Laurie and I do her wild writing. She's like, oh, I love Laurie. So I shout out to both of you.
She's so beautiful. Yeah.
She's so beautiful. And she told us the story as well about how, because she writes a poem a day and puts it out on her if you're a part of her newsletter, you get a poem every day.
Every day.
And they're so incredible. But she says to her, she said to herself and told this story that, she doesn't ask herself, is this good? Because if she did, then she would never put things out. She just asks herself, is it true? And I'm curious about how do you get people as a teacher? How do you have people let go of being good and aim for the truth instead?
And, it can take people some time. I think lately I've been really thinking about bedside manner as a teacher and just the energy that you bring. And a friend of mine, I love this. Maybe you have heard me say it because it's really been one of the biggest teachings in the last year. My friend Diane, who teaches ESL students, English as a second language, says that if her students feel seen and welcomed, she's done her job. Which is to say, we start with welcoming. We start with being ready. We start with a kind of energy of, I see you. So for starters, that. And, maybe you've heard me say this too. Mr. Rogers of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, he was talking about the TV show Mr. Rogers. And I forget exactly how he said it, but he's like, if people feel safe and they feel relaxed, they will open up. They will reveal themselves to you. And he said, as a teacher, kind of, I think he thought of himself as a teacher too. It's just about tending soil. We're just creating a soil and environment. So I have things I say to people. I say things like things you've heard me say in circle, I'm sure. What if, when we're writing, this writing that you're doing today isn't for you, but maybe for someone else at this table who needs to hear it? Not in a preachy way, but like, what if the writing you're doing isn't a reflection of like, oh, this is a good piece of writing, or hey, I really like this, or this is shit, or whatever. But what if you're just listening, you're just channeling, and you don't want to mess with what you're hearing? You want to trust it and just relax, trust it, because when you read it, someone else at the table might hear it exactly as you've written it, with the wrong words and the funny changes and the why did you say that, and oh, what was I thinking? Like they needed to hear it just like that. And they're like, like I said, like, oh my God, now I understand something about my life. And so if we can relax and get away from the ego of, is this good? Instead of this, is it true? Is this happening right now? Then we're in a good place to trust ourselves. And so much of it is that. And another thing that I say too, and I should come up with some new things to say, but no, just sometimes it's so funny. I had the poet Tony Hoagland here. He died a few years ago. He's an incredible poet. And he came for the day and he taught big, beautiful workshop here. And I'm like, Tony, you have to come back. Like next year, it's going to be a 4-day. He goes, Laurie, I just teach the same things over and over and over. But, so I say to them at this table, I'm like, we're witches making a brew. Our words, our stories, everything, we each have an ingredient to put into the brew. Our words, our stories, the funny way you said that, the wrong word, the whole thing, your tears. And we make this brew, we can't make it without you. So please give us exactly what you have. And at the end of our 2-hour session, we drink from it and we walk out changed because we made something together, and it could only come from that true place.
Yeah. Whether you call yourself a writer or not, because
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's not for everyone. This work is not for everyone. I'm really clear with people, like that thing about it being a healing community and a healing kind of work. I really let people know that up front. This isn't the place where you're going to write, your 5-part essay on your trip to the museum with your mother. Now, you could, of course, do all the juicy parts of that, but we're not working on structure. We're not working on grammar. We're not working on goals. I, for many, many years, worked with people on, they wanted a byline, and I helped them get a byline or helped really edit hard their work, their essays and stuff. And I just realized, people need more practice just getting on the page and finding their home voice, the part inside them that is the part that I'm speaking to you with. This is
Yeah.
the me voice. This is me not performing, but this is me sharing
Mm,
from a place of intuition and what comes next. And
mm.
that's the place where we want, as writers, to come from, because that's how we're going to connect with, whether it's people sitting at a table or people who are hearing our work or reading our work. When they feel there's another human being on the other side of that, it
Yeah.
helps them connect
Yeah.
to themselves. Like just like Anne Lamott is so good at that, and
Yeah.
other people as well, you know. And so sometimes, I mean, this is all I really try to do in my own work.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
which is so important, especially in this day of AI coming through, and newsletters can be so easily written there, but when you can really sense, I think maybe that's what that gift is that I was
Mm.
so grateful for, because it feels like this practice is helping me to find that voice, so that when I do sit down to write something that has to go
Mm-hmm.
out to the public,
Mm-hmm.
it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, here I am, here I'm meeting
Mm-hmm.
myself on the page because I've had this
Mm-hmm.
practice every day.
And that's what's so healing, is that you're listening to that self. And I think it's a lifelong practice.
Mm,
You know,
mm-hmm.
it's not like you've got it. I remember I was teaching this class once and I taught it for a season with them, and they're like, "We love it, but now give us like the next level." And I'm
Mm,
like, "There is no next level. There's just you
yeah, yeah.
opening up and going deeper. That's the next level."
Yes,
You know,
yes,
it's not going to come from me. I'm going to
yes,
keep bringing it, but so it's a deepening, it's a life practice.
yeah.
And, you know, like I say, we drink from the brew and then we move outside and the world looks sharper because you're more in tune with yourself. It's like sometimes I think of it like a chiropractic adjustment, that
Mm,
when a chiropractor aligns your bones so that when you walk or stand or sit, you're not in pain. And I think when you use true language, when you're willing to tell the true story of
mm,
heartbreak, of loneliness, of isolation, or whatever your story is, or love, even love can be intimidating to talk about. Um, you align yourself because the truth will set you free.
yeah.
And so, but even in the practice you're doing, which is the Wild Family and that community and working off the videos, I hope to transmit in those short videos that kind of calming moment, but through the poems. I could not do it without these incredible poems
Mm,
that are like storytelling poems. They're human stories.
yeah.
And that's what we, you know, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it really, it's so much about noticing and just looking up
Mm,
and seeing that sometimes juxtaposition, like I'm thinking of the one we did recently, the Mark Nepo Adrift, where the jump
mm,
off line is everything is beautiful and I am so sad, or I was going back through a couple of years of my journals, and the Danusha Lamaris Today the Pleasure, where her jump off line was the world is falling down and yet,
mm,
like it feels like
mhm.
that and yet is
So
what
much.
you're asking us to notice every day and to write
And
about.
And I have had some really amazing teachers, and one of them was Dina Metzger, who's in Topanga Canyon in LA, and she's 89, and I studied with her for a long time. And she said a couple of things, she said her definition of poetry, and we're not writing poetry. Some people are, but we're not, that's not our aim. Beauty and ugliness side by side, that we
Mm,
need that understanding. And she asked me once years ago, "What do you write about?" And I said, "I think I write about beauty, but it's not always pretty." And she said, "Beauty rarely is."
mm,
So
mm,
I am very interested in that. And yet, I'm
mm,
really interested in the world is as it is. And yet, and it's not a Pollyanna thing. Like, I know the world is in a crappy place, but I'm going to the pool to swim my laps. It's
mm,
not like that. It's like, I'm heartbroken. And also, um, the wind in the trees today touched me. I was, and yet I walked with my mother and we held hands after dinner. Like,
mm,
we have this too, this too, this
yes.
too. And I think that's poetry, is especially right now. I mean, during COVID, poetry was like, it was like the leader. Poetry was showing us how to live through
Hmm.
this time. But I think now we're in war times, and there's so many incredible people writing about how it is. It's hard, and I'm sure you felt it when you've been writing your newsletters or that. What do you say about the war? You're just like, speechless,
Yeah. Yeah.
heartbroken.
Yeah.
Everybody is just like, how do I even? And now I'm going to write about the trip I took with my mother, and now I'm going to tell you about this thing my kid said. And how do I do that? And so we have to bridge and find a way. And I think poets do it so beautifully. They
Mm.
really show us how to hold complexity and paradox.
Yeah. Yeah. Where do you find all these poems?
It's funny, like my day starts with coffee, and then I'm just looking for poems. So
Mm.
I get a lot of people like James Cruz, Rosemary Rotolo Traumer. Maya Stein is another incredible
Hmm.
favorite of mine. A lot of these people send poems for free if you sign up every day or once a week. And then there are other poetry magazines that I find that are online. I'm sure you do the same. I
Mm.
do that. And then, I go to bookstores and I buy I buy books, and I also, friends share with me. I must have, just thousands and thousands of books and poems, and I'm always touched. There's so
Yeah.
much. And I love the magazine The Sun.
Mm.
And I used to
Hmm.
love the New Yorker. They were starting to publish Ellen Bass, and I'm like, wow. But it really depends who the editor is.
Mm. Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where do you find poems?
From you.
Okay. Great.
Yes.
Good.
No,
Keep
and
them
then
coming.
from you, then I go down rabbit
Yeah,
holes like who else
exactly.
does Rosemary like and who
Yeah.
does she recommend? All the yeah.
All of it.
Mhm.
Exactly. All of it. And it's just like that. It's rabbit holes.
Yeah. Well, and it's so beautiful. I'm also so grateful for the introduction to poetry because I don't think I
Hmm.
was familiar with narrative poetry, honestly,
Hmm.
until my 40s. I
Hmm.
think I thought
Hmm.
poetry was only
Hmm.
Emily Dickinson and, old school poetry.
Yeah. No, these are storytelling poems. These are
Yeah.
poems about our life. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And they help us.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that you say almost every time is, or well, which you do say every time because it's part of the wild writing instruction, is that the pen never leaves the page. You just keep writing. Set your timer and go for 15 minutes and don't stop.
Hmm.
And I'm curious, I don't know, this 35 years is a long time to be doing the same practice over and over. Have you ever had a stint of writer's block or not feeling inspired, or is
Hmm.
writer's block even a thing?
Um, Writer's block's a thing for me when I'm trying to do something good.
Mm,
Writer's block's a thing for me when, like, I've definitely over the years started building some projects, some writing projects. And as long as I'm keeping the bar lowered and willing to write as poorly as possible, I'm okay. But the
mm,
minute I start going, this is something, I think that's where my challenge is. And often, like, I'll work with somebody, I'll get an editor or somebody who can help me to cross those parts where I start to feel this better be good. So
mm,
I have that voice in me as well.
mm,
I have that voice in me as well. To me, like, an incredible challenge for me, Megan, would be to once a week take some of the work straight from my journal with a couple cleanups and just put it out there, because
mm,
there's still a part of me that wants it to be good. And I say that because you think 35 years of this practice, I'd be like blowing in the wind here. But no, the reason the practice continues to be really fruitful for me is because I want it to be good. And
mm,
so practicing letting that go, it has to be for me. That's the only way I
mm,
can do this practice or teach it. So I'm practicing. It'll be my whole life of letting
mm.
go.
Yeah.
And, but it's not, there have been times where I felt less interested. Oh, and I will say this, and prior to the pandemic, it was just, I did classes online, but I was listening to everyone. They were small classes or classes at the table. So I'm listening all the time. But then when the pandemic came and we got like the wild family, which has like 500 people in it, they don't all show up. Of course, when we have our every other Monday, about 80 people show up. But I was not hearing as much writing. I wasn't
Mm,
hearing as much. I'd go into the breakout rooms and I'd hear 4 or 5 people read and I'd share my reading, but my writing. But I think it started going flat for me. Like last year, I had stopped doing live teaching at the table. And I realized, oh, now I feel more distanced from this work. So I brought back live teaching. And so now I do 2 classes at the table a week. And being in that, again, being in that jam of like, oh my goodness. So that's how you tell the truth.
Mm,
Listening to people do this beautiful, brave sharing brought me back into the heart of the work. And sometimes I will say, it's really important for me to step away from all of it, from teaching and everything, so I can go be in life and
mm,
have life touch me. I'm
mm-hmm,
going river
mm-hmm,
rafting this summer, or next week I'm going to a 5-day silent retreat just to
mm,
be in complete silence without my phone and my computer. And I need to get out into the world often to remember what it feels like to be a human being out in the world, having human experiences,
mm.
so that when I come back as a teacher, I'm not just the teacher. I'm like this living human being who's had all these moments and you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, totally,
Yeah,
totally.
but one day I will stop. One day, one day I will
No.
hold you. Okay, we can take it over. You can come take it over.
Oh boy, I don't know that big shoes to fill, Lori. I don't know if I could do that.
A crew of people.
Yes, yeah. There's
Yeah.
you do have there is a lovely family in there. It feels
Mm-hmm.
like a real community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, that said, I'm wondering if you might be willing to share. And I know we talked a little bit about this before, but I wanted to give listeners who may be new to the concept of wild writing a little taste of and a teaser of what it is, so listeners, I asked Laurie if she would be willing to share a poem and then her wild writing response to a poem. So
Great. Yeah. I'm happy to do it. And I took it right out of my notebook. It's not edited. I had to read it again to make sure I could read it. But I'm going to first read you the poem it comes from,
yeah.
which is short and wonderful. It's from Maya Stein, who is just she's like we quietly secretly call her the poet laureate of wild writing. She's
Mm,
a longtime friend of mine and an incredible writer. And so she does a piece a week called 10 Line Tuesdays, and you can sign up for it. Maybe
mm-hmm.
you'll share it, Megan.
Yep.
This is one of my favorite pieces. It's called Trust Me, I Don't Know What I'm Doing.
Mm,
I'll read it to you once, and then I'll read you mine, okay?
yes, please.
Trust me, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know where the broom is, and the hammer, and the number to call if things get bad. I know who my friends are and how, when I put the kettle on, something settles inside. I know how jubilant I get at the sight of the first tomatoes, and how certain sunscreens smell like Hawaii, and how talking sometimes helps, but dancing always does. I know that when a cat is purring, I feel like a good person, and that when I'm not in a hurry, I pay closer attention, and also the other way around. I know that riding a bicycle makes me braver than yesterday. And I know promises are like glass vases you try not to drop, but do. I know even the acrobats believe in gravity. I know that what's done is done, and also that you can start over, and also that you don't have to.
Mm, I
So
love
we
that.
isn't that beautiful? I
Mm-hmm.
know. So we take a line, I might offer them a few lines, like I offered them a line, trust me, I don't know what I'm doing. And you'll take that line and you'll repeat it as often as you need to in the piece.
Mm,
Another line we might have used was like, promises are like glass vases. Um, or another line here from the poem is, you can start over. So there are all these different ways to get into the writing. So I chose the title. So here it is. Trust me, I don't know what I'm doing, but this morning after my shower, I brought my coffee into the living room where Mark was sitting, and I sat across from him, and I wondered why we didn't do this more when we were married. Though I believe we did, but in this iteration of us, children gone, thoroughly divorced, and with just a few months until he leaves California permanently, I'm more aware of this time we have, that even if it's just 15 minutes, as he tells me about his sci fi space dream that I didn't exactly follow, or the other dream where he's simply walking around his fire pit on his land in New Mexico, around and around like he's in a kind of meditation. But more than that, he tells me, in the dream, his feet are sinking deeper and deeper into the sand, and something is happening, like he's entering a portal. And I imagine him in years to come, his white Einstein hair, his browned, dried skin, his face more craggly, the way he lumbers out of his RV in the morning to pee in the sage, his dog closely following. I see how it is, how after 30 years of learning our ways, the ways of traffic and stoplights and marriage and children, the life of people and plans, the taxes, he is in some ways returning to a land and a world that he's more inclined toward. What it is to spend the early evening sitting on a bench to watch the massive white clouds move through the sky, or to wake up to animal bones in your yard because your dog has brought them home, and to not speak or see people for days. At coffee, I acknowledge the years he let me, I don't say tame him because I never could, of course, his wildness, all that color and rule breaking, mostly social, like all the time he lifted plates of food to his face and licked it clean, a sign of total respect in his mind, or seriously, leaving the house at midnight on his motorcycle. But stop me, I don't even remember half of it. I thank him for giving it a go, for letting me be his guide into civilized living, being responsible for other people and bills and taxes and children and all that sort of thing. And that I can see how now he's returning to a world that was always inside of him, the drumbeat of something that never went away. And even I could hear it, and the kids could hear it too, and it fed us in ways. And I'm certain I might never have gone off on my own and started my own work, how I had not seen him model it for me. And I thank him for that.
Mm. Mm. Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It's just so,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so funny that you picked that poem because I am running a women's circle. And this week that was our poem as well. So I have a thing, and mine is totally different. And but the same prompt, and we all went around, and just like you did, each of us shared something that was so the beautiful thing about it is it's so personal, that's so your story, having coffee with Mark. And yet I had bringing it back full circle to what you're talking about at the beginning. Like I listened to that, and I feel, I know what that feels like. I don't know what your situation feels like, right?
Exactly.
But I know this feeling of, I don't know how to put words to exactly that, but a little loss, a little grief, a little gratefulness, all of those things that make us human. That's what I feel when I listen to you read that. So,
yeah. And I think, again, just we all have we have these things inside of us, and we're afraid sometimes that we'll be like isolated or kicked out of the tribe if people learn these things about us, or that we share in this way. And in fact, the tribe needs us to share in this way, so that we can all, we're tethered by the truth of our stories and the intimacy of it. And, in wild writing, we always make sure we don't, I mean, you love everyone's work and you're just like, oh, I got to talk to her about that, or I know what that's like, but we always ask permission. So we come and I say, hey, Megan, that piece you wrote about your marriage, can I reference it? Which is to say, I would love to talk to you about your work, but I also want to ask permission first, because we hold these so sacredly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that, again, I think that where people, as they grow, if they feel more lonely and more isolated, it's because they're keeping things inside of them that they think are not deemed worthy for the tribe, that people, if they found out, and that's always been kind of my specialty, is kind of going for the jugular and writing about the stuff that was hard, that might, I don't mean get a rise out of people like, this will really knock their socks off. Not like that. Just like, okay, I guess I got to write about that. And so we have this thing when wild writing, as we're writing as fast as we can, we're just, and say yes to what's coming. Just yes, yes, yes. Even if it's like, oh no, not that. Yes, yes, yes. Because that's what's there.
Yeah.
And the minute you block that and you say, I'm willing to write everything but that, everything just goes south.
Yeah.
Because if you're blocked about one thing, you're blocked about everything.
Yeah.
So that's part of the healing too, is we're unblocking
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
and we're willing to let it go. It's a total life path. And the writing itself, it starts on the page, but it changes your life
Mm.
because you start to get used to hearing yourself and saying yes to what's coming, and also sharing with people in that way. And if you have your life outside that is different from that, that will be a problem over time. The gap between who you are on the page and who you are off the page, it starts getting smaller and smaller.
Mm.
And I've seen whole lives change
Yeah.
because of it. Just this not willingness to live that isolated from yourself, really, life.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is really about connecting to ourselves as much as it
Hmm.
is the group and the.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
These are really, I love talking about this stuff because what else do we have to talk about? I mean, we can talk about a million things, but we're talking about the work of settling into yourself
yeah.
and honoring yourself.
Yeah. I was going to ask, just kind of to bring us to a close. Is that your why? Like, why do you do this?
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah. I think that, I don't know if you've heard this line before: want what you have, not what you don't have.
Mm.
Want what you have. Like, what is it to really embrace what is right here? That's such a spiritual practice.
Mm.
And I think that the life of outsourcing happiness or things or stuff, like, we live in such a loud world. And as somebody who participates in that loud world, or who's scrolling at night on Instagram and going like, that face cream will change my life. Those pants are going to look great on me. And like, I know what it is to do that. I definitely do. And I think many of us do. But to really pull back and to recognize what is right here, your very breath, you know, to look out and see the yard, and to actually notice like how beautiful the trees are as they pass, as they blow, or to be remembering a conversation from last night that really touches you. Like, that's a way of like making your world very intimate,
Mm.
and it calms us down and it settles us. And I think life moves quickly, and I think that we can slow it down by bringing us into this noticing practice of what
Mm.
is right here,
Mm.
you know? So I probably could come up with a couple of different answers, but that's very much at the heart of what I care about. And the practice is for me, just as it is for you,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
This morning I got up and wrote in my journal. I also read in a journal, and it was the smallest things. It was always the smallest things. It wasn't the big epiphanies. It was everything that I was noticing as I'm slowing down. And it was enough.
Yeah.
And that life can be enough, because we live in a world of grasping and not liking what we have, the preference. I don't like this. I like this. I don't like this. I like this.
Mm.
That life of preference is like that samsara of
Mm.
always feeling somehow that what you want is just out of reach. But if you can see what you have, then there's more wholeness.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Oh, Lori, thank you
thank
so
you.
much for
Thank
joining me on the
you.
pod. I am so excited for listeners to hear more about this because I feel like if listeners have been following me for long enough, they've heard your name, they've heard about wild writing and how inspiring it can be. And, whether you think of yourself as a writer or not, I think it's just
Mm-mm.
such a beautiful, beautiful practice. And so I will put links to how folks can get a hold of you and get involved in the wild family. And I know on your website there's a teaser. People could try it out for a couple days
Mm-hmm.
by getting on your
Yeah.
newsletter.
Yeah, I think you can do it for 3 or 4 days. And then I forget what's happening, but soon in the next month or so, we're going to do a 5-day freebie or 4-day freebie where there'll be some live and then some videos. And it's a great way to find out if this is for you.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. I love this conversation, and I'm just so glad that you're doing this work in
Mm,
your world, that you're holding circles for women and
yeah.
doing this beautiful work, because I know that it's probably made your life and theirs so much richer.
It really has. It really has. And I do always hat tip to you. And it's funny,
Thank you.
I think the year we met, I actually, I've listeners who have been following me heard my interview on New Year's Day with Andrea. And I met Andrea by doing her Mondo Biondo course like
Yeah.
a decade ago or so, a
Yeah.
long time ago. And one of my things. I believe it was the year that I got introduced to you in the wild writing was like, I want a mentor. I want a teacher to come into my life. And then was like, boom, there's Laurie Wagner. There you go.
Hey, anytime. Plus, you're welcome to get in touch with me at any time. And I'm just happy to know you're out there doing the work.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank
That's,
you. And I get
yeah.
to see you in May. I'm going on retreat
Hmm.
with you in May. I'm so excited about that. So,
Yeah, we're going to this beautiful organic farm
mm,
in Canada.
yes. Oh, so
Canada.
excited. Yeah. So
Yeah.
excited.
Thank you. Thanks so
Yes.
much.
Thank you, Lori. And in the meantime, I'll see you tomorrow for coffee in my living room.
Okay. All right. Lots of love.
Thanks, Lori. All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I enjoyed having that with Lori. I think if you have listened to the whole thing, you can understand why she has been my mentor and is such a beautiful and generous teacher. And not teacher in the sense that these writing groups have any whiff of this is how you write, or this is what you should write about, or structure or workshopping or critiquing. None of that. None of that exists within wild writing. Perhaps a better word for Lori is host and gatherer and permission giver and seeker of the truth and getting to what is underneath and peeling back the veil of the human experience so that we can connect with each other, so that we can find that common thread or that universal experience of what it means to be human. And she is such a beautiful guide in that way. So I am so grateful to Lori for having such a honest conversation about what this path has been for her. And I'm so happy to share the ways that you can get involved with wild writing. If going on a retreat is something that is accessible to you, I can't recommend her retreats highly enough. And I'll put the links to those Wild Wonder retreats with Andrea Shear. And for those of you who are listening to this podcast, you can go back to the one that came out on New Year's Day with Andrea. Lori and Andrea are retreat co-leaders together. And this could be a case where the sum of what they bring together is even greater, if that's possible, than its parts, because you put those two together and it's just so life-giving and so magical with the writing and the creativity and the wonder. So I'll put links to that in the show notes. I will put links to Lori's website, 27powers.org, where you can find out how to get involved in the wild writing family or try a teaser of wild writing for yourself. I think she opens up the wild family that we talked about, which is the weekly videos, 3 videos a week. And then every other Monday, there's a live call. And on the other 2 Mondays, there's an opportunity to hop on with another leader who leads what they call campfire. So if you want to just come and read your writing, there's a community there as well. So many different ways to connect with Lori and connect with wild writing. If this is something that moved you or something that you're curious about trying, I am also offering these, although I don't call them wild writing because I bring in other elements. So it's not pure wild writing. But if you are interested in doing that with me, you can check out my website and I will put links to my workshops and classes that I'm offering. And if there is room, please nab a spot and come join me. I would love to have you. But I would encourage you, listeners, especially if you would say, I'm not a writer or this isn't for me, to rethink that. I think if you have a pen and you have a paper and you can string a sentence together or make a list, I think you can call yourself a writer. And it's such a beautiful experience to write in community. And I think that's why I wanted to have Laurie on the show, was to describe what a beautiful practice writing can be in community when we gather and when we connect over what we have just created. So I hope you heard that. I hope I've piqued your interest, and you will click on one of the links in the show notes, and possibly we'll see you on the page. All right, I will be back next week with another way to gather, connect, and create, or maybe all three. And remember, this is just a practice. Just like wild writing, this is something that we do over and over, not because we're aiming for perfection, just because it keeps us sane. And we need more of that right now. Thanks to Laurie Wagner for joining me today, and I will see you back next week.